In this clip, we're going to learn about ways we can isolate specific parts of a character rig. So we have a new scene open up, and you can find the same scene within your project files. So we're working with the Ranger character run cycle, and we can go ahead and play the animation. So anytime you're working on an animation like this, whether it's a run cycle, a walk cycle, or really anytime the character is moving around a scene, you always want to make sure that the overall upper body movement or the weight of the character looks correct, because that's going to really determine the overall believability of your animation. It doesn't really matter exactly what the legs are doing until the overall upper body movement looks correct, and then you can always go back in and then fine-tune the legs exactly how you want them to be. So let's go ahead and just pause the animation, and we'll jump to frame 1. Alright, so if we go in here, I've actually gone ahead and just isolated specific parts of this character into separate pieces of geometry. So we have our character's upper body as well as his legs. Now, depending on the character rig you might be using for your projects, they may be isolated in different parts. So maybe the character's knees might be isolated from the upper leg. It kind of just depends on how the character rig is set up. But you need to be able to have different parts of geometry that can be selectable. So we're going to go ahead and select the character's leg geometry. Now, if you can't select geometry, make sure you go up here to the surface select mode and make sure you just have it turned on. All right, so we're going to go ahead and keep our character's legs selected. Then we're going to go over here to our layer panel, and we want to hit this icon right here, which is the ability to add a new layer with the selected geometry. So we'll hit that, and that's going to drop a new layer in there. And we can just double click the layer and just name it something like legs_layer and hit save. So that's added the geometry to this new layer. And now all we need to do is go ahead and hit this icon right here to hide out that geometry. And we can also just hide the NURBS curves. And we can play this animation. So now you can see we're looking at just the character's upper body. And just looking at this, we can already get a good sense of how this animation is going to look without ever looking at the character's legs. We get a good idea that this animation and the weight of this character is really working. So that way, by hiding the character's leg geometry, you can go in here, you can focus in on just the upper body to make sure that looks correct. And what we'll go ahead and do is just go back to Show, NURBS Curves, turn this layer back on. And now what I want to do is just demonstrate to you that it really doesn't matter all that much what the legs are doing if you have the actual upper body movement looking correct. So I'm going to shift select both of the foot controls, and I'm going to hold shift down, click in the timeline to do a drag selection, and I'm just going to delete out all of these keyframes. So there's no animation on the legs, and it looks a little bit funny here, but that doesn't really matter, because if we hide that layer, we can get a good sense of this animation and how it's looking. And just by looking at the character's upper body movement, we can get a really good idea of where the legs should actually be placed within the animation. Now, this is a technique I use a lot when I'm working. I find myself when I'm working on a character that needs to walk around a scene that I will place the legs in sort of their basic position where they need to be, but I won't actually polish them or really tweak them at all until the upper body movement looks right. I'll actually just hide those legs completely until I'm ready to move on and I'm happy with the overall upper body movement. So now that we learned a way we can isolate specific parts of a character rig, in the next clip, we're going to learn about a way we can play blast our animation to preview our animation in real time.